The rookie army nurse steps deeper into the emergency room as the echoes of chaos roll down the halls like thunder that refuses to fade, and every passing second adds a new layer of tension to the air, thick enough to taste, and heavy enough to slow the breath in her chest. She had trained for unpredictable situations, but the scene unfolding before her pushes past every drill she has ever practiced, because this is not a simulation. This is real. This is raw, and this is Dangerous the Giant. Soldier stands in the middle of the main corridor, towering above every staff member around him, his broad shoulders heaving with each ragged breath, and his eyes wild with a kind of fear only those who have faced death recognize. His fatigues are torn, his boots splattered with dust and dried blood, and his hands clench and unclench as if grasping at memories that refuse to stay. Buried equipment clatters across the floor, where he has already swept carts aside, sending supplies scattering like debris in a storm. Nurses take shelter near the walls, whispering to one another in frantic tones, wondering how this man had slipped past the initial triage checks, and how anyone will manage to approach him now. Security has formed a loose circle around the soldier, yet none of them step closer, because every time one tries to move in, his head snaps toward them, and a deep growl forms in his throat. It is not anger, the rookie nurse realizes, as she watches from several yards away. It is terror and confusion disguised by the brute strength of a man trained to survive at any cost. She feels a tremor run through her as she studies him, but instead of fear, she recognizes something familiar, something she has seen in the eyes of Twee. I'm seeing the eyes of friends returning from deployment, and in the mirror during her own hardest nights, she sees a flashback, gripping him with iron claws, dragging him into the battlefield while his body remains trapped in the fluorescent glare of the emergency room. The alarms continue to chirp, overhead monitors beep in frantic rhythms, and the crackling sound of a broken tom adds more static to the cacophony. Yet through it all, the nurse forces her breath to slow, because if she allows panic to lead her, then the outcome will spiral even further beyond control. She has learned in training that sometimes the greatest tool is presence and the steadiness of a calm voice. Her supervising physician shouts her name, urging her to step back, but she does not heed it, because she sees that the soldier eyes have locked onto a stretcher half hidden in shadow, and his expression tightens as if he sees something more than just hospital equipment in his mind. Perhaps it is an overturned vehicle, or the remnants of a blast or a fallen comrade. She cannot know for certain, but she knows enough to move. Slowly, she steps forward, making sure her feet glide in deliberate, measured motions that will not startle him. The light catches the badge on her scrubs as she moves, and she quickly angles her body so it does not reflect toward him, fearing it might trigger another wave of confusion. The soldier lifts his head, his breath loud and uneven, echoing down the corridor like a beast cornered and ready to defend itself. His arms rise as if ready to ward off an unseen enemy, and his gaze darts from one corner of the room to another, tracking phantoms that only he can see. The nurse speaks softly, using the voice she practiced during difficult drills. In basic training, the voice that carries unwavering steadiness. Even when her heart races, she calls out to him using simple words, letting each one fall gently into the space between them, creating a fragile bridge he might choose to cross. He does not react at first, and she fears her voice cannot reach him through the fog of memory that envelops him. But then he shifts, turning slightly in her direction, though his stance stays rigid and defensive. She notes the tremble in his hands again, stronger now, like the aftershocks of a distant explosion traveling through muscle and bone. It tells her he is not preparing to attack, but trying desperately to ground himself against something he no longer recognizes. She takes another step, and the security team murmurs warnings, but she lifts her hands subtly, signaling them to hold back. Another step brings her within a few feet of him, and she studies the set of his jaw, the strain along his temples, the hollow exhaustion in his eyes. She speaks again, reminding him where he is, telling him he is safe, telling him he is no longer in danger. Her words move slowly, but they carry the weight of truth, and gradually she sees his posture change. His shoulders drop just a fraction, his fists loosen just enough that she knows he has hurt her, but then a loud crash erupts behind them as a metal tray hits the floor, knocked over by a nurse scrambling to move an IV pole out of the way. The soldier flinches violently, his entire body jerking, as if a grenade has detonated behind him, and for a brief moment the nurse fears they will lose him to the memory again. She reacts instantly, lifting both of her hands, palms open, showing she carries no threat, and she speaks louder this time though. Still steady, still calm, reminding him again and again that he is here, not there, that this is the hospital, not the battlefield. The soldier freezes his breath, held suspended in the space between collapse and attack, and the entire emergency room holds its breath with him. The nurse steps closer until she stands directly within his line of sight, blocking his view of the shadows that seem to trigger him. She keeps her body relaxed, even though her pulse hammers against her ribs faster than any combat drill has ever pushed it. She talks to him about grounding, simple words like focus and breathe, words she uses with stressed recruits during field training. At first, he stares at her as if she is another illusion conjured by his mind. But slowly, his expression shifts. Recognition flickers, not full clarity, not safety, but the first spark of awareness that she is someone real, someone present, someone not tied to his pain. The tension in his arms softens for a moment, and she seizes the opportunity, taking the final step that places her within arm reach. Though she knows the risk is immense, she keeps her hands visible, her posture open, and she maintains eye contact, inviting him silently to follow her back into the present moment. Behind her, she can feel the weight of the entire staff, watching, waiting, hoping that this gamble succeeds. The soldier breathes again, deep and unstable, but it is a breath grounded in the current moment, not the past. She senses the shift like a fragile change in the wind, and she continues speaking, guiding him further, anchoring him with every slow word. And as the echoes of chaos fade just slightly, she realizes she has become the single point of stability he can grasp in the storm engulfing his mind. The emergency room remains tense and unpredictable, but for the first time since his arrival, there is a path forming, a way to reach him before the situation spirals again. She holds his gaze and prepares her next steps, knowing the outcome depends entirely on whether she can keep him tethered to her voice and to this moment in time. The giant soldier sits on the edge of the hospital bed, his massive frame hunched forward, and the rookie nurse remains at his side, speaking softly, her voice the only anchor in a storm of memories and adrenaline surrounding them. Every muscle in his body trembles, and his eyes dart to every shadow as if expecting danger to leap from the walls. Yet he does not rise, he does not attack. Instead, he listens as she continues to guide him through simple, grounding exercises, reminding him where he is, who he is, and that he is not alone. The UR staff stands back, giving them space, though their hearts race and their minds scream for someone to do something to protect themselves. Yet she does not flinch, and the soldier senses it, and he trusts it in the rawest way he has in days. She asks him to breathe slowly, following her tone, counting softly in a rhythm she hopes he can follow. And for the first time he manages a shaky inhale and exhale that carries no edge of fear, only the hint of release. His massive hands rest on his knees, still tight with tension, but no longer balled into fists, and she begins to talk him through the moments that haunted him, describing each flashback as though it were a distant scene, reminding him he survived, he is here, he is safe. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours, yet she never looks away, never stops speaking, never breaks the fragile connection she has forged between his chaotic mind and the calm presence of her body's security. And nurses remain on standby, moving only when he allows them to inch closer to assist with medical needs, but she remains the center of his focus. Her voice, the lifeline between panic and control. He mutters fragments of words, memories that make no sense to anyone else, and she repeats them, gently acknowledging his feelings, validating his terror without feeding the frenzy within him, and with every repetition. The soldier leans further into her presence, his eyes less wild, less haunted. A single tear runs down his cheek, and she wipes it away. Lightly, still speaking softly, encouraging him to let go of the pain that grips him while maintaining his awareness that he is not alone. Finally, he leans back against the pillows, and the tension leaves. His shoulders in slow waves like water draining from a stormed river, and she allows herself a quiet sigh of relief, knowing that the immediate threat has passed. Though she remains vigilant, ready to react if needed, the hospital staff exhales collectively, a wave of relief sweeping through the room, and though the soldier does not yet smile, the first flicker of human recognition and trust appears on his face. She sits beside him motionless, except for the gentle movements of her hands, guiding his breathing, slowly counting each inhale and exhale, reinforcing